The Hawkeyes -1. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you being here for the next 60. Comments and questions are welcome. We appreciate your support as well. Give us a like, super chat contributions available for you as well. Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm makes it go here for us each and every Tuesday at 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 where it counts. Corey, how you doing today?
Doing great, Mark. Feels like football finally. I mean, I shouldn't say finally. It's mid-July. To me, it feels like football. I think I'm a little more amped for it earlier than I was this time last year. There are reasons for that. I had some conversations with actually a good friend of mine who does some sponsorships on the show. And I think sometimes when you have those conversations a little early, that kind of gets your blood going. So excited. You got SEC Media Days going, right? Is it done or is it still going?
Oh, still going. We have just begun.
Is it, do they do a whole week down there? Do they?
It is 4 days. 4.
Okay. Anyways, so yeah, Big 12 Media Days is behind us, and got to hear from Spencer Petras over at Utah State last week. So it sounds like he's ready to go. They got a weird situation.
Hopefully, Corey will notice that he froze and will jump back on with us. So we do have a special guest coming on today, Ryan Herrings, who is with Locked On Badgers on the Locked On Network to talk about Wisconsin-Iowa football and the matchup as we go through our opponents throughout the offseason. This is something we've done the last few summers here at the Voice of College Football on all the channels as we have previewed the upcoming games with the opponents series. So again, we've got Wisconsin on tap. We've looked at Minnesota in a previous week. Corey, you're back.
I got these construction people outside my house just blaring, and who knows what lines they're hitting. So I could just be in and out all day. But anyways, as it relates to Utah State, I was talking about Petras talking to the media. I know you can't cover all 130 whatever FBS schools, but that is a situation I wish you would address on your channel, because I think it's just very odd timing. And of course, you had the Pat Fitzgerald thing last year that was odd timing as well. But with what happened there, I think Title IX related, and now all of a sudden they don't have a head football coach, or at least they don't have the guy that Petras thought was going to be the head football coach. So that's just yet another challenge for Petras to overcome. And he's had a few. I'll give him that. He's had to figure out a way to overcome some stuff in his career, and we'll see how he does. Kind of the final test of his long career.
Corey does a nice job of running his channel and running my channel at the same time.
You're welcome, Mark. I'll be here all day.
I appreciate all the suggestions that you believe that I should take off on. I do.
Well, Utah State, no, I think that would do okay. You probably think it would just tank.
Yes.
But there is an Aggie fan base out there.
Oh, there is. They just don't know I exist.
Well, we need to change that. So
okay. All right.
I'll work on that for you.
But it is an interesting story. Yes. Yeah.
So, and there was some media availability today. I was not there, but thanks to people like Tom Kakert on 3 and some of his comrades, I think some other people in the Iowa media posted some stuff, was able to get some of that video content. Cade McNamara spoke to the media. Brendan Sullivan spoke to the media. Jacob Gill was there. Jennings Dunker was there. Deshaun Lee was there. So I was doing a nice job throughout, and they normally do. I give them credit. Sports Information does a good job making guys available throughout the off season, throughout summer workouts, and we're getting real close now to fall camp. Less than a month away from our open scrimmage and media day, and Cade says he's 100%. And contrary to what our good friend Levi Stevenson would report, he's been 100% for the last month plus, he says, and whatever that means. I will say this: the one thing that I took away from his media availability was that he stated that he is going to be wearing a brace this year on his plant leg. He doesn't think he needs it. It's been suggested that he wear it, and so he is going to wear it. I'd have to go back. I get the two legs confused, right? Because he has torn both, and then he also had that injury that caused him to have to wear a brace preseason last year and then into the first few games. So I'd have to go back and remember which leg he was wearing the brace on last year. I thought that really hampered his mobility. How much of that was actually the equipment, the actual brace, and how much of it was the injury, I don't know. We'll find out, but I'd have to think that's going to hurt his mobility. So that would be the one thing that I took away from the availability with Cade McNamara, is that apparently he's going to be wearing a brace all year. So that's just another mark for Sullivan if we're talking about the mobility contest. I think Sullivan's already got an edge on Cade running the football and getting out of the pocket, but that's not going to help. You can tell Brendan Sullivan, speaking with the media, he's a pretty quiet kid, I think. He's not... He and Cade are very much different in how they approach speaking. Cade is not to say that they're not both intelligent. I mean, I'd be foolish to claim that a guy who just transferred from Northwestern isn't intelligent. So certainly Brendan Sullivan is, but you can tell Cade, I think he enjoys the spotlight a little bit. I do. I think he enjoys the spotlight. I'm trying to think of a word to describe how he kind of approaches that, but it seems like Brendan Sullivan may be more of a, hey, I'm just going to put my work in, be pretty quiet, and get the job done. I'd say the one thing that I took away from availability as it relates to Sullivan, Jennings Dunker told the media that Dunker will get to the facility at like 6:30 to eat, and Brendan Sullivan will have already been there for like an hour. So he's getting there like 5:30. And that's what Jacob Gill said as well, that he's always been that way, that his quarterback, who, by the way, was his roommate since day one at Northwestern, is his roommate at Iowa now, that apparently Brendan Sullivan's just a hard worker, first guy in, last guy out. That fits right into the Kirk Ferentz mold. So, from a verbal standpoint, you hear the two talk, you're like, Cade kind of talks like an Iowa quarterback, like a Kirk Ferentz quarterback. But then you hear that, and it's like, okay, Sullivan's probably the type of guy that's just more so, hey, I'm going to put in the work. Not that Cade doesn't put in work, but you get what I'm saying. Stylistically, there are differences there, on and off the field, it appears.
Well, didn't Cade made some fairly brash statements, not anything inappropriate in any way, but didn't he make a few kind of braggadocious kind of claims when he first signed with Iowa? I thought he did.
Are you claiming that he's maybe a little cocky?
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's fair. I don't want to make that sound negative. I think having a bit of a chip on your shoulder and having confidence is good. I do think, I believe very much in the biblical adage, pride is before a fall. So I think there's got to be balance there, and so humility is a very important quality, and as it relates to leadership as well. So I'm not saying he doesn't have that. I don't know, but I do think he's a little edgy, and it'll be interesting to see how he handles real competition. He didn't have real competition last year when he got here. He was the promised son, and now he's got a guy who should be gunning for his job. And hey, unless I'm feeling really secure and whole about myself, Mark, it could be easy to become a little insecure when the guy that's nipping at my heels is getting into the facility before everybody else. That might, that would put a little fire under me. And if it doesn't put a fire into Cade, then maybe he'll lose the job. I mean,
I would have thought that his audition and competition with JJ McCarthy would have humbled him a bit, because that was not close.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I mean, I don't know Cade off the field, and I've had like one conversation with him very briefly at Media Day. What I would say, my observations for Cade McNamara are that he has taken that experience at Michigan. And I think it's foolish of me to even suggest that there wasn't a degree of humility that he likely, whether he wanted it or not, ascertained due to the experience. He was probably humbled to some extent. But I also think when you had another Big Ten program that came pining for him the way Iowa did, not saying that Kirk was on his knees asking Cade to come to Iowa, but it was clear that, he was their guy all along, and the way the fan base reacted, right? Almost like he was the promised son. I think from that regard, it's almost like maybe that switched a little bit from take a humble step back, and then you see some of the animosity. There's a lot of Michigan fans that just rip him on social media. I don't get it. I see it a lot. I don't acknowledge it anymore. I think it's stupid. But hey, these are kids. They see that stuff, and then he probably feels like he got the short end of that stick. From his perspective, he may look at that mark and say, I should have kept the job. I don't care where J.J. McCarthy was drafted. I don't care what he accomplished. I was better. And from a competitor's standpoint, that's good that you have that mindset. I think we all know he wasn't, he didn't deserve to keep the job over a guy who was as talented as J.J. McCarthy, and that's reflected in how NFL scouts viewed him and drafted him. So, but I wonder if Cade maybe took that and created that little bit more of a chip. Even I don't know what he was like in Michigan, but I think he's maybe a little bit edgier now. Maybe the second injury, affected him as well. He's been through a lot. You think about those injuries and losing the job. And now imagine he loses the job this year. Imagine if that happens. I'm not saying I want it to happen. I want the best guy to win the job, but that's a lot of adversity. But it's also, hey, may the best man win.
I would think that these Michigan fans would have a warm spot in their heart for Cade McNamara. When he led them to a Big Ten championship, they had not won one since 2004.
They also hadn't beaten Ohio State since when? I mean,
2011. I try to discard that win, though. But
you know what? You get what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the infamous call, wasn't it?
No, there was an interim coach for Ohio State.
That was the Ryan Day year.
So they haven't beaten Ohio State since 2003 before that.
Was that the Fickle year then?
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they hadn't beaten Ohio State in that long. So I would think that I got a good friend of mine who's an Ohio State fan. Other than you're also a good friend. But to me, the people that I talk to who are Ohio State, Michigan fans, that's the big game. And he helped lead them to a win that year, and to the Big Ten championship and to the college football playoffs. I don't get it. I don't know why you have to hate somebody on their side. It's like these people that date someone, and because they break up, hatred is just like a prerequisite. There has to be hatred, Mark.
Yeah.
Like, because I dated you and we no longer are a couple, because it didn't work out, I hate you. Like, I've never understood that. Courtship, a successful courtship, does a successful courtship always end in marriage? You tell me.
No, not if the best outcome for both people is for them to part, if they are not the right fit.
Yeah. So I guess my analogy here with Michigan is that courtship, that relationship was in some sense very positive and healthy. A lot of great things came of that experience for Cade, and the education he got, what he helped Michigan go to, and it eventually ended. But hey, I don't know why people fans are going to be fans. I don't know why they behave the way they do.
Yeah, and another aspect of that is I would not think that a fan base would blame the player when the player lost his position and then decided to leave. It's not as though Cade McNamara just took off.
So DDR256 says that Cade burned bridges with things he said later. Yeah, I don't know about that. I know Eric All said some stuff later about how he felt he was treated after going down with the injury. But, I mean, give me a break. Guy says a few words. He's frustrated. He led you to a Big Ten championship. All those things that outweighs all the things that he helped you do. And if you're not going to give him credit for the things that he helped you do as the quarterback, as a starting quarterback, then you just don't understand the game.
Let me ask you this, Corey. In the two sessions with Mac and with Sullivan, were they presented with the situation of a quarterback battle?
The only thing, no, not really. The only thing that I heard specifically asked of Cade was how he's getting along with Brendan, how Brendan's performing, and there was just little mention, just that he thinks that they call him Sully, is doing a good job since he's gotten here, and he's a hard worker. That's about it.
if I'm showing up for those interviews, I'm asking them about, in some fashion, I'm asking about a quarterback battle.
I mean, how do you ask? What do you ask? What are you going to say? To some extent, like, are you in a quarterback battle? Yes.
Do you believe that this is a out in the open, wide open quarterback battle?
You're going to ask the players that? You're going to ask the actual players that are in that battle? You're going to say, do you believe it's a wide open battle? I mean, I'm guessing they would each answer from a politically correct standpoint. They'd each say, yeah, I'm here to compete and play, but whatever's best for the team. But I know, I get it. I would ask that question. I'll ask that question at Media Day. Somebody didn't get to it first. Maybe somebody asked that today and I missed it.
And besides Jacob Gill, who else was interviewed today?
Deshaun Lee, corner, and I believe it was Jennings Dunker, who's kind of become a phenom because of his hay baling, his Solon beef, whatever that is, the hay bale toss. He won't be doing that this year. It sounds like he had a little bit of a procedure on his shoulder during the offseason, but he does say he's ready to go football wise. And we ran through some of these weights the other day and how some of these guys have changed. Some of the older guys have actually lost a little weight. Some of the bigger offensive linemen, I think Dunker actually lost a little weight, and he kind of alluded to the fact that this is a really old group now. And I mean, a few years ago, we just kept hearing all the excuses from the apologists and even Kirk Ferentz about how young Iowa was up front. And even last year, we made the statement, that's no longer an excuse. They're no longer young. And this year, there is 0.000% chance that anybody in their right mind can argue they're young and that's a reason why they haven't performed yet. I mean, if they come at, we've looked at the depth chart, Mark. I mean, I guess I can pull it up here since we're talking O-line. I mean, you look at the number of seniors and super seniors in this group, and I'm talking guys in their 5th or 6th year. So first of all, Logan Jones is a redshirt senior at center. Amazing that he's that old now, but he is. You've got Tyler Ellsbury, redshirt senior. Mason Richmond, redshirt senior. Jennings Dunker, redshirt junior. Connor Colby, senior. Nick DeYoung, graduate, double redshirt senior. He's in his 6th year. Think about that. These are a bunch of old dudes, Mark. There is no excuse. And it's not like they just have a few old guys and injuries. They got depth. They've got people right now. DeYoung, he may not start. I mean, he's going to be in a battle for one of those guard positions. I listened to your segment you recorded with Elliot Clough the other day, and he alluded to the left guard spot. I don't know if I'm not doubting Elliot on that. He could be right. Left guard, maybe it's right guard. But wherever he's battling, wherever Nick DeYoung's battling, he's battling. He's not a cemented starter because, I mean, we just ran through a bunch of guys who have experience. And, oh, by the way, the one guy I didn't mention, Bo Stevens, he's a redshirt junior. He's got a lot of experience. They got like 6 guys, Mark, 6, 7 guys that are all like 5th and 6th year guys, and they all have tons of experience. I mean, you can say it's bad experience, but there ain't no excuse now. And George Barnett's been around long enough now that we're done giving him the leash. Oh, he's only been here a couple of years. No, he got here in 2020. It's 2024, folks. This running game ought to be really good. And the fact that Liddell Betts managed to keep all those running backs together. We've talked about that because we talked about Jazz Patterson losing the weight that he lost and Kamari Moulton gaining the weight that he lost. The versatility that is Terrell Washington. If they don't run the ball effectively this year, it's a big time indictment, regardless of, new OC. So what? I'm guessing the run game looks very similar. They're going to run some different, I'm sure they're going to have some different packages in place and some different schematic things that they'll change. But in general, there are no excuses, I don't think, for an experienced group of running backs, an experienced group of offensive linemen, and position coaches and a head coach, all that are supposed to be specialists who have been around the block and then some.
I'm going to highlight a failure of this offseason only because, out of respect for this football team, of how good they could be this year and how much they could accomplish, that they could not go out and get one, if not multiple, accomplished wide receivers in the transfer portal. It's inexcusable.
Well, they don't have equity. I mean, they don't. I'm not talking just by financial equity. I think they had some. I don't know NIL wise what they were able to offer guys like Gill and Sullivan, but I'm guessing that was part of. Sullivan was a Big Ten starter at one time, so I'm guessing he was given some sort of NIL incentive. But Mark, they don't have anything to bank on. Like, there's no collateral. They can't offer anything on tape. The receiver room has been so bad. And yes, I guess the one thing they can offer is opportunity at a Big Ten level and hope with a new offensive coordinator. And, you know, I could see that argument if you're Tim Lester and you're looking at this and saying, look at what I've done at Western Michigan, and he should tout himself. Look what I did with Dwayne Eskridge. Look what I did with Sky Moore. Look what I did with, who's the other guy that I always forget who transferred to Michigan State, the receiver that's now in the league. Every week I forget what his name is.
Jaden Reed.
Yeah, Jaden Reed. Why can't I remember that? Anyways, Jaden Reed. So he's got that to bank on. They tried to go after that Fresno State kid. All those guys were really small. We've talked about that. They didn't get the Fresno State kid. Maybe Gill is a bigger get than you and I think. I think he could be. Remember, Lester's never been able to be anywhere. He's not been in any place to have an opportunity at really recruiting that big. But the guys he's been successful at have not been highly touted kids. So maybe Gill ends up being this major diamond in the rough. The fact that they were able to land, I mean, they were able to land Sullivan and Gill. They happen to be roommates. That would be a really odd coincidence that Jacob Gill is just this guy. And they got him in part because of Sullivan's commitment. But maybe that's the case. But I agree with you. And here's the other thing. We don't know the potential with some of the guys that are on the roster because we saw Charlie Jones leave and excel. We saw Keegan Johnson. I know he struggled with injuries at Kansas State, but you have a Big 12 offense that offered and took him. And Arlen Bruce is another one. Never played because of the gambling stuff, but Oklahoma State wanted him. So I really do believe the talent level in that room is better than people think. I'm not saying it's top half of the Big Ten, but it's better than people think, and hopefully Tim Lester gets the most out of those guys.
Wouldn't it be something, and you've done a nice job of outlining, as you just did, but you've given a more in-depth look at what Tim Lester's been able to do with lowly recruited wide receivers out of high school and turning them into top 2 round NFL selections, that he's able to do that with, let's say, Caleb Brown and Jacob Gill, that they become.
Could you imagine?
And the offensive line's experienced and the running backs are
if they
really
do
good.
Here's the deal. And I don't think that's going to happen year one. Okay. I'm not saying it's ever going to happen at Iowa. It's just a different situation, right? If that somehow in La La Land, if we want to play those games and all of a sudden they've got multiple guys who are, playing like future draft picks, maybe even you get an all Big Ten receiver in there, the line comes of age, they're making the playoff. I mean, I really can say that with confidence. I think they're in the playoff at that point. I think the schedule shapes up too nicely. 10-2, I think, would get you in if your offense is that much better. And how much better is that? I don't know from a rankings perspective, but I think they're in.
Before you went that direction, it popped into my head that I believe, like me, you don't like making predictions early in the off season until later August camp, really get a feel for the team. But it'll be interesting to hear your final selection on a record and whether this team will go to the college football playoff.
I think it's ultimately very hard to make that, even though the potential is there for them to go 10-2, maybe even 11-1 if everything comes into place. The potential is there to do that. But I think it's going to be hard to predict because we don't know exactly what this offense is going to look like. We don't know what level of improvement it's going to experience. And then, this may sound silly to some Michigan fans and trolls that are in the chat, but losing guys like Cooper DeJean, who gave you not just defense, but gave you punt returning and gunning, and then you lose Torrey Taylor, those are big losses that we're not really talking about. And those have been such instrumental pieces in Iowa's record success, even though they've gotten, I saw some Twitter account today posted, did you know Iowa lost their 3 games last year, 92-0 or whatever it was? Yes, we know that. But in the wins, those pieces have been so important. So if like Reese Dakin isn't as good as we hope and think he is, and they can't find a punt returner, that hurts field position. Obviously, field position is what Iowa's been built on under Kirk Ferentz. So it's going to be hard to really put your foot down. I still think the 7-5 is it 7.5? Is that the over under from Vegas? I still think that's low. I mean, I'm not a betting man, and nor will I be. But that's incredibly low. I think I can tell you, I'm not predicting 7-5. They'd have to at this point. They'd have to have some immense like 2020 preseason scandal type of stuff to erupt here in the last month and a half before the season for me to even sniff 7-5. I think a lot would have to go wrong with the talent level they have back on defense.
They could lose to Ohio State. They could lose to Iowa State. Who else do they play in the Big Ten?
They get Wisconsin. They do get at UCLA and Washington at home. And then Maryland on the road late. Like I say, there's losable
Nebraska.
Games in there. Yeah, there's losable game. There's always losable. This is a Big Ten conference. There's always losable games in there. But I just think, based on what Iowa does, pretty much year in and year out, it's hard to imagine them losing a series of those games. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
They could drop 1 or 2. Maybe they end up, 8-4. But I think 8-4 has got to be the ceiling, or excuse me, the floor. Where is UCLA in your? I know you don't do preseason power rankings. Where do you project them?
Low.
How low? How low
like
in the Big
14 or 15?
Well, because from a brand perspective, I'd probably rank them in my top 8 overall in the conference. So for the fact that they're that low is startling.
And they would have been there last year, but they've lost a ton, and they've got a completely inexperienced head coach.
And how low is Washington on that?
And they lost their defensive coordinator, who's one of the best in the business. Washington, they are the most different team from one season to another in college football. They only bring back 2 or 3 starters. 2 or 3 starters. Both sides of the ball.
Those are the 2 teams they get from the Pac-12.
I know.
I mean, they
lucked out.
They did. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, imagine if somehow Washington had retained DeBoer and all those guys had been a year younger, and Chip Kelly stays at UCLA. I mean, like, those could be maybe the 2 toughest teams, even over Oregon, USC. If you, I'm just hypothetically here.
I thought you were going to the entire league. Okay, yeah.
No. Other than opposite UCLA and Oregon. So that didn't happen, and I think Maryland's going to be difficult on the road. But they're entering a new era with a new quarterback, and Wisconsin's a question mark. I think they're a dark horse for me. The divisions. It's not like Iowa fans have to loathe Wisconsin as a division player, but they are a dark horse to me as a team that could maybe be a lot better than we thought. Maybe a 9-3, 10-2 team if things go right. I haven't looked at their schedule.
Now, that said about UCLA, because of the way Iowa plays, do I expect them to go out to the Rose Bowl, a cross-country trip, and just have a cakewalk? No, it'll be Iowa will beat them 17-13.
I mean, maybe Iowa tramples on Washington at home. I just have to think that a national championship team from last year, or national championship appearance team, has the depth and still the brand that they reloaded enough to be competitive. I just can't imagine they're going to drop that much.
No. Yeah, I think they'll go 6-6.
That's a big drop. That is a big drop. And obviously it's going to be fascinating. How does Iowa compete in Columbus? That's one of the big storylines for me, because they were just so bad out there 2 years ago. I watched the highlights of that. I pulled up the full game. Somebody posted that on YouTube the other day. I pulled up the full game the other day, Iowa, Ohio State 2022, just to see the first play of the game. you remember what that was? The first play from scrimmage of the game. Spencer Petras takes the snap, drops back, rolls left. I mean, just straight. Didn't even think about it. Wasn't flushed out of the pocket. He just rolled straight left, threw it right to an Ohio State defender. So, I mean, it was just. And then later, hey, in spite of that, in the shoe, I think into the first quarter, Iowa was up 7-3 because Iowa, the defense comes through, forces a field goal, and then Joe Evans, one of the most impressive plays of the season, maybe the most impressive play of the season. He ends up getting to CJ Stroud, just pops him, knocks the ball out. What does Joe Evans do? He just jumps right back up, grabs the ball as it's bouncing, Adrian Claiborne-esque from 2009, and trots into the end zone. It was such an Iowa moment, and yet we knew what was coming. We knew exactly what was coming.
Yeah, a very odd game, and Iowa's used to playing odd games, but not like that odd game because they ran into a different type of opponent where they could limit them to roughly 300 yards and still give up 54 points just because, very odd game. And that's a game that I don't think Ohio State fans, I don't think general Big Ten or national fans in looking at Ohio State's schedule, and there's a lot of projections about them going undefeated, but I think it's more in line with 11-1. To expect anyone to go undefeated is a bit much, but not a lot of people really circling that game as one that could be an issue, and I don't necessarily agree with that.
You think it could be an issue?
Sure.
It's been a while since Iowa. When's the last time Iowa won in Columbus? You'd know better than I would. They've been obviously really competitive out there a couple times, but
Kirk's won twice, right? Total. I think he won in 04 and
sounds right. But they're both
17.
In both in Kinnick.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize until I was watching that game back the other day from 2022 that, Iowa hadn't played Ohio State since 2017. Both of those games, the last two matchups against the Buckeyes, both of those games have opened first play from scrimmage with an interception for the home team.
Yeah. Don't hold me to this, but I think the last time Iowa won in Columbus was 1987. Marv Cook scored a touchdown on like a 4th and 29.
So that was a Don Patterson. That was a Don Patterson team.
Yeah. Yeah, they scored with like 10 seconds left in the game, 29-27. Because Ohio State didn't lose a lot of games there from about 93 on. They weren't losing games for about 7 or 8 years, 9 years. And then Tressel showed up and they weren't losing games then either. They've been on a pretty good run for 20 plus.
All right. Do we want to real quick? Do we want to address the roster news from yesterday?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't relish this because I don't know the situation with the young man. Spoke to him briefly yesterday, but wasn't going to pry at him. It sounds like, according to Iowa, Aiden Hall, who's going into his second year out of Harlan, Iowa, great football community. He is not, as of right now, is not on the roster. So he's no longer with the team. That's all I reported yesterday. I had somebody get mad because the video wasn't long enough. I had a sponsor plug and it made up half the video. Well, I don't have anything else to report. The information I have is that Iowa's confirmed it. You can go on HawkeyeSports.com and look at the roster, but Iowa's confirmed it's not a clerical error. He informed Iowa last week that he was departing. So he's still listed as a student at the U of I student directory. I wish the best for him, and we'll see what that means. I mean, maybe he ends up coming back, rejoining. Remember, they were above the scholarship limit, so they needed to get down below it, technically speaking. And so I don't know. Like, my mind goes a lot of different places. Could this be a situation where Aiden Hall has some stuff that he needs to take care of? He leaves, but because he's technically going to move to walk-on status, technically speaking, NIL could make up for. I mean, somebody's got to move to walk-on status. You see what I'm saying, Mark? Somebody's got to move to walk-on status. They're above the limit. So somebody's got to do that. He could rejoin. But again, I don't know the situation. I'm not going to pretend to know the situation. I know he dealt with some injury his first year, but that is the latest. And that, he was a scholarship player and a guy who had lost some weight. His new weight was listed last week. He had dropped, recently moved from linebacker to DB and had dropped 7 pounds or whatever it was. So hardworking kid. I remember at high school, he had offers from some military academies. I think he had a Minnesota offer, and hopefully he'll be able to continue his football career.
Corey, I've been waiting to do this, not just this off season, but last off season. And I've mentioned this to you maybe 10 times. Well, we have the perfect opportunity, unless you can think of something else going on that you'd like to address. I don't see any comments or questions there in the chat. That I want to run through recruiting classes. And I want to get your take on if a guy was highly ranked, didn't work out for him, you're in that evaluation of, how he panned out versus his expectation, and obviously noting anyone who's left the program. So we'll start here in 2022. Obviously, the 23 class, they only played one season. They were just freshmen. So let's go back to 2022.
Great class at the top. I mean, they had an opportunity the next year to ride some momentum with Xavier Wampa and, of course, the Caden Proctor saga. But no, 22, I mean, to get a 5-star in Xavier Wampa and then Aaron Graves, who I thought probably could have ended up being a 5-star had he not committed to Iowa so early. I think both those guys have had solid careers. They're both cemented starters now. But at the same time, Mark, I think both of those guys have room to grow. And the ceiling is a lot higher than where they are right now. And Iowa lost a dude in Logan Lee, a guy who tested out really well at the combine, surprised a lot of people, including myself, with how well he measured. And so, you add in Noah Shannon, who didn't play last year because of the gambling stuff. It's going to be Aaron Graves and Y.A. Black next to each other. And those two dudes are physical beasts. I mean, Y.A. Black is about the biggest man I've seen wearing an Iowa uniform ever, maybe next to Carl Davis. I remember seeing Carl Davis in person when I was a lot younger, thinking, man, this dude is massive. And I'd say the same thing about Y.A. Black. He's big. Aaron Graves, he's big. He doesn't have the maybe height, girth. He's listed at 6'4". I guess you're looking at the recruiting rankings. He was listed at 260, but he's up over, I think he's hit 300 now. So, I mean, we'll see. I think verdict's still out on those guys. I think maybe there was a little bit of overhype about Xavier Wampa, what he was going to do early as a safety. But I think both those guys have an opportunity to come of age this year. Caleb Johnson, it's funny. I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day about Caleb. Like, the dude is I talked to somebody who is close to the program, and they keep saying how much of a freak the guy is. But the question is, when will the light switch on as it relates to the football field? Because let's be honest, he's had a few glimpses of greatness, but I feel like I'm beating a dead horse. We have not seen his ability to make people miss. We've not seen an ability to put your foot in the ground and change direction. He is, when you're talking about building, everybody's obsessed with this new college football game. Talking about building your own athlete on College Football 25 or on Madden. He's the guy. I mean, 6'1", whatever he is now, 220, 225, I'm guessing. Got a long stride, but you've got to have the ability to make people miss, and I haven't seen that yet. So I don't think he's going to be the starter as of right now, but we've got fall camp to decide that. Cale Vanderbush isn't with the program anymore. So I'll admit, I was not as high on Cale. I mean, once you get down past Caleb Johnson, I think there's a lot of guys that were similarly ranked. I mean, these guys don't even have, none of these guys you're showing right here have national rankings next to them here on 247 Sports. Did Caleb Johnson have a national ranking?
No.
I mean, he didn't even have a national ranking. So you got two guys at the top, and then, number 25 and number 112. So I was not as high on Cale Vanderbush when he committed. Scroll down a little bit, Mark. TJ Hall, another guy who I really like the kid. He was committed. He was actually committed to a couple Pac-12 schools before he committed to Iowa, Washington, Arizona. He's yet to really emerge. I know he got a kind of a bad rap that first year when he had to sub in for Cooper DeJean in the Nebraska game and got burned against a future NFL receiver. Caden Crawford, he was going to be a project coming in, I'd say substantially undersized. He has not emerged yet. So, still with the program, but has not emerged. Conan Trigger, his name became famous after that miraculous play against Michigan in the Big Ten championship game last year, where he ran down the kick return down to like the 1 yard line. But he's waiting his turn because you got Quinn Schulte and Wampa back. Deshaun Lee, overachiever. He's the one guy that signed after the early signing day. He signed in late January, early February, whatever it was. So he's probably going to be a starter this year. He has emerged. Great find by Phil Parker in an area in Belleville, Michigan that has been very productive. Detroit area. Bostic, what will he do now? He's down at Texas A&M. We'll never know. We'll never know what he would do at Iowa. It'd be interesting to see what he does at A&M. Jack Dotzler, a big dude. He continues to get bigger. Him and Cale Crow, very similar type of players. Neither one of those guys have really emerged. Dotzler's appeared on a couple of depth charts, but that's about it. I was high on Addison Estringa when he committed. I just watched him on tape and thought this guy's underranked. And, playing as a true freshman tight end is impressive. He's going to be alongside Luke Lachey and get a lot of run. And then Landon Van Kekerix was a very late add. I don't even know what position he's playing now. I think he's at linebacker. Brian Allen Jr., I think some website had him as a 4-star at one point. Jazz Patterson was a 4-star at one point. Both those guys. I mean, Jazz has had a little bit more experience in games, a little bit more tape to work with, but Brian Allen's flashed in preseason. I think Allen's going to have more of an opportunity because of opportunity, like guys in front of him that have left, than maybe Jazz Patterson will. But I think they'll both play. Carson May, swing and a miss. I mean, again, he left before the Tim Lester era, so we'll never know what Tim could have gotten out of him. But Ken O'Keefe recruited him. Then he was with Brian briefly, and it just never worked out. Jaden Montgomery, same thing as of right now, linebacker who has not emerged. And you want me to do the last two? Alondo Trader, I think is he in jail right now? He got charged with a very serious sexual offense after he left Iowa sometime later. He opted out of his NLI, National Letter of Intent. I think went to some smaller school and recently got charged. Now, as you know, a charge is simply an accusation, innocent until proven guilty. But that's the last I know about Alondo Trader. So maybe that was a mutual parting of ways. And then Steven Stilianos, I gave him a good year. I mean, I think it took him a year to kind of get settled. He'd played some FCS football in the Colonial but gave Iowa some good production last year.
So for Trader, he went to Grand Valley State University, and in March of 23, accused, and then the student pleads guilty in sexual assault case.
So if it was back in, my guess is he's out. If he served any jail time, my guess is, and maybe he didn't serve any jail time. I don't know, but that was over a year ago.
No jail time.
No jail time?
As of his sentencing on April 17th, he will be placed on probation under the Holmes Youthful Training Act with no jail time.
Wow. Well, no wonder he pled guilty. I mean, right? That's the way this, whether you like it or not, that's the way the criminal justice system works. I'm guessing that there might have been a plea deal there, and so who knows? But yeah, good class. I think there's potential, so much potential still there in guys like Graves, Wampa, Hall. So and then they've got guys like Estringa who have, Deshaun Lee, guys that maybe those are the lifeblood of the program. These guys that are 2 to 3 star kids that, Iowa adds kind of out of nowhere, and they end up being big players. And let's not run through this class. This one makes me depressed because of that top one. Unfortunately, I don't know David Cobb or his family. This is 21, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, David Cobb, just another 4-star kid that I really
Oh,
liked coming out of
wow.
high school, and
Yeah.
departed from the program, and I believe it was medical. Just
Mm,
never could get healthy.
mm.
Colby has chiseled himself out a nice career at Iowa, but nobody up front has been great. So he's one of those really old guys now that needs to step up and play well this season. Obviously, Cooper DeJean goes without saying, underranked, should have been a 5. I mean, in hindsight, like you look at him, you're like, yeah, that guy probably should have been a 5-star, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's a 5-star kid.
Sure.
Max Llewellyn, great career so far. He's playing. He's playing. He's going to play again this year. As undersized coming out of high school, but he's made himself a nice career out of Urbandale. And then we know Joe
So,
Labus, yet another quarterback they missed on.
so Iowa obviously got the top 3 ranked players in the state, and they were all top 150 players nationally.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
David Cobb was Illinois.
David Cobb out of Illinois. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know where Llewellyn ranked. Yeah, he was
6th.
6th in the state. So, and then Keegan Johnson, yet another receiver that comes and goes, along with Arlen Bruce. Both guys are in the same class. Bo Stevens, one of those old guys up front. Justice Sullivan, very sad story. I know he's actually from around my neck of the woods here in Story County. Another medical thing. He just couldn't stay healthy, unfortunately. And great kid, cool story. His family, I believe, he was. I don't want to. This is something I don't want to screw up, but I believe he is originally from somewhere in Africa and was adopted by a family here, I think. But really cool story. Wish his career had panned out a little differently. Griffin Little. Is he even on the team? is Griffin Little on the team? I don't even know where he's at. I guess I can. Let me look this up. He has not played. Maybe some special teams. Let's see here. I'll find it in 2 seconds.
He's with Bowling Green.
Little is
tight end.
Why didn't it?
Like it?
Tight end.
Okay, maybe it's somebody else. Must be somebody else.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm looking here. This is there's a different Griffin Little.
There's a Griffin Little.
Okay, this looks like
Bowling Green.
Okay, looks like our guy. Looks like your guy, Elliot Clough, may have reported something. Sounds like he took a medical back in March. So there you go. That's actually, no, it was Adam Jacoby of Hawkeye Beacon. Did you hear about that? They've changed over to Hawkeye Beacon. They're no longer
That's
Go
what
Iowa.
I hear. Heard
Anyways,
that from Elliot.
Yes. So Little is unfortunately another medical. Several of these guys taking medicals. Jeremiah Pittman, he's another guy. I thought he was a little overweight. Mark, how big do you think a 6 foot? I know everybody's different, but how big do you think an offensive lineman at 6'2" should be?
Defensive lineman. Did he switch to offensive line?
No, he's defensive.
Oh. Yeah, that doesn't. I don't know. Probably in high school, he would be that heavy that there should be some growth. There should be some weight put on.
Well, he's listed right now. Let me find his. Where is he at here? Currently, I believe he's in the 50s. Yeah, he's 55. He's listed at 293. That's a pretty big guy at 6'2".
Yeah.
So, but he is probably going to play because of need this year. And so I'd say verdict's still out. Brody Breck just got drafted in the MLB. He was a 2nd-round draft pick last night or 2 nights ago. So I don't really know that it matters what his football career panned out to be. Jeff Bowie's finally healthy. Let's hope. Cross your fingers he stays healthy. Good kid. Been writhed with injuries. Zach Tweet, Story County kid, up in Story City. Jaden Harrell, Mislinski, Shire, Hilson. That class has a lot to prove still, Mark, and it's an older class. Some of those guys have played. Man, a lot of injury issues with that class. Go back up. I mean, Shire, let's start at the top. David Cobb takes a medical. Go down. We've got Sullivan takes a medical. Little takes a medical. We missed Dunker. He's obviously going to be starting right tackle. Jeff Bowie has been just plagued with injuries. I think I won't mention Jaden Harrell, but I think Harrell has dealt with a lot of injuries. Myslinski has not hardly been on the field. Carson Shire's hardly been on the field. That's like 6-7 guys that have had like serious injury issues, Mark. HDMI 1 ARC. Anyways, yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what to say about that class.
Well,
why does it do that? Why does it do? Why does your monitor do that at times?
It goes to sleep.
Goes to sleep like me. All right.
My laptop goes to sleep.
Oh, your laptop. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. All right. I just wanted to go through that exercise. So that 21 class, those guys have played 2 seasons. No, 21, 22, 23. So they're coming up on a senior season.
By the way, yeah. What happened to your Wisconsin guy?
I don't know.
Listen, I'm not ripping the Wisconsin guy. I'm glad you were able to get somebody, but it's funny this has happened.
I didn't get him.
Well, but here's what happened. Remember, was it last year? We were trying to get these during the season. Was it last season? And we were getting like every opponent. And the one I could not get somebody from was Wisconsin. I even reached out to the Wisconsin athletic department, and they were like, no help at all.
Well, I checked my phone a couple times because you know how sometimes, at least for me, sometimes I think, oh, did I screw up? Did I do something wrong? Did I say the wrong time? No, it's the right time. And I sent the link, and it wasn't like we booked 2 weeks ago and I haven't said a word since. These conversations were like an hour ago. So I don't know. I don't know. So.
Well, again, probably a great guy, but fits the bill of Wisconsin and what I've dealt with in the past. I don't think I've ever been able to do a preview. You probably had Wisconsin guys on, but I've never been able to do a preview with a Wisconsin media person that I can remember.
I've got a few go-tos. He's become the third. Well, to an extent, he's come on a few times. He's from Locked On, so
okay.
Hopefully he will be able to make it one of these weeks as we continue our opponent series. I guess we've only had one. Oh, we've had 2. We had Iowa State and Minnesota. So
yeah, we skipped over Illinois State and Troy. I don't know why. I don't know why we would have done that, but
maybe we'll pick up Troy. Illinois State. I'm going to trust Kirk on that one. I think he can get by without too much intel.
Let me give everybody. I was going to tweet this out. But let me give everybody, since we have a couple extra minutes here, let me give everybody an idea of what Illinois State did last year, because it's easy to dismiss them. They were 6-5 in the FCS. By the way, Mark, they play a decently tough schedule. I mean, it's a pretty good. What are they in the? Are they in the Missouri Valley?
That would be my guess.
Yeah, they're Missouri Valley. So they play a pretty tough schedule. That's a good conference. I mean, Don Patterson will tell you about the strength of that conference for years. But let me say this: in 2023, yes, they went 6-5, but listen to the games they lost. Well, maybe we should. You want to skip this part, Mark? I'll just run through it real quick.
We're walking out the door regardless.
They lost 5 games. One of them was to Eastern Illinois by 1 point. One of them was to Youngstown State by 3 points. One of them was to Northern Iowa by 3 points. One of them was to North Dakota by 1 point. Those are 4 of their 5 losses. So that's like a total of what, like 8 points or something crazy. Their only other loss was to national champion South Dakota State, and they lost by 19. That might be a better team than people think. You know, I can't go but just purely off record. I haven't looked at what they have returning, but that's again, good schedule and a lot of close losses.
I guess we'll just make introductions and then we'll try to book Ryan for another week here. So we'll do that. We got Ryan Herrings on the line from Locked On Badgers. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, we will have to have you another week. I don't know where our lines got crossed, but 5:30 Eastern on the. If you check
you know what happened is I used to live in the East Coast, and I literally just moved last week to Wisconsin. So I saw 5:30 on my clock, and I actually thought it was 5:30 Eastern right now.
There you go, Mark.
We are now at 6:30. I kind of thought that. I processed the time situation might have been off there, and I double checked that I have learned a long time ago to stamp all of my time references to Eastern time. But so this is our show here, Ryan, talking Hawkeyes every Tuesday at 5:30 Eastern. So you are welcome back whenever you can make it. But we need to wrap it up here. So Ryan, this is Corey, who runs from the Hawkeye of the Storm, and we're doing an opponent series where we want to catch up with everyone on Iowa's schedule this summer. So
nice to meet you, Corey.
Good to have you, Ryan. Look forward to chatting.
Same.
Thanks, Ryan. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, folks, every Tuesday at 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 Central, right here on the Voice of College Football. And again, you can catch the audio from these get-togethers every Tuesday. That's on from the Hawkeye of the Storm, Corey's audio platform on all the major platforms out there. All right. What's on tap from the Hawkeye of the Storm this week?
Interview with Jacob Gill going down this week. So that should be, nice. It was a very fun interview to do. Great kid, very well-spoken. Like I said, he talked to the media briefly today, but I chatted with him for probably a good 25 minutes. So that will drop, I think tomorrow is when it's scheduled to drop. So, and I told people yesterday, Mark, it's kind of like now mid-July. It's basically every day we're going to be having stuff to talk about. So have a recruiting video dropping today, Jacob Gill interview tomorrow, and more as the week goes on.
Big Ten Media Days next week. They start on Tuesday. I don't know what Iowa's day is off the top of my head, but of course we will report on the Hawkeyes. For Corey, I'm Mark. Thanks for being here. We'll see you back here next Tuesday on the Voice of College Football.